Be careful with people who prey on your weaknesses. If you have to be, imagine having a friend that you're always talking about personal things with, always sharing, and they're sharing too. It's not really one way, it's just they're sharing a little bit, you share a little bit, but to you, when you share, you share things that are real and vulnerable and things like that. When they share, you don't know what they're sharing. Maybe things that they don't really mind or care about getting out, or they actually trust you. They know the type of person that you are, and they know that you're not gonna do anything with it. But you yourself, you think that you have a good friend on your side, and you have a moment of vulnerability. Life is happening, and you're just kind of opening up and whatnot. And you say what you need to say. You exchange information. You share stories. You open up, right? Yeah. Be careful with people that use those moments of vulnerability. Okay, those moments of weakness. When you felt like you were not weak, but you felt weak or you felt kind of down. Whatever. And they use those moments and they use those times where you opened up to them and you opened up your heart to them. They use that to their advantage. When the opportunity presents itself, the same information that you provided to them in confidence, they use that same information to destroy you. And sometimes you don't need to wait for big events to see if you're dealing with that type of person. You don't need to wait for big events. Even in day-to-day conversations and day-to-day interactions, especially when energy is high and maybe people are not at their best, maybe you're not at your best, just life is happening, you're emotional or whatnot, but you're having a conversation, you're having an argument or whatever, and then in the middle of an argument, they bring up that same information that you provided during good times, during a good moment, right? During when you guys were having a heart-to-heart, right? They use that same information that you provided then, and they bring it into the current heated moment to try to make a point. They're not making a point, but to try to make a point, or actually there's no point being made. It's just to basically shut you up, right? And it's basically just to cause you to halt in whatever argument you're trying to make. And it's also intended to create this shock value of like, wow, out of all of the things that you could have said, I did not expect you to say that, right? Out of all of the things. And that's how you know too, not only do you get to see that the person is not a good person, because if they have to pull from those types of moments of vulnerability to slap things in your face just so they can win an argument, you're not dealing with somebody who has your best interest in mind. No person that actually cares for you does this, right? Because they know how it's gonna make you feel. No person that actually cares for you, genuinely cares for you, does this, right? But the other thing too is like it just forces you to question. Wow, if you can do that to my face, it just it forces you to question. If that's what you can do to my face, I wonder what you can do what you're capable of when I'm not around, right? It forces you to really assess this individual. Not only do they have to pull from those moments of vulnerability to make a point, but for them to have the audacity, right, the audacity to slam the door in your face like that, right? When you think you're dealing with a friend, and it's also an indication of just a really low level of maturity. You can't even have a grown up conversation without looking for a crutch, right? So either way, A, they're not a good friend, but B, they're extremely immature. Okay, only the immature have to pull from. They can't stay in the present. They can't be in the moment with you and actually make a case for whatever thing they're trying to prove or whatever argument they're trying to make. They can't stay in that space with you. They have to look to the right and to the left, far back, weeks and months ago, to see what they can pull just to shut down the conversation, just to put a screeching halt to it, and bring in points that have nothing to do with what's being discussed. And when you're dealing with something like that, it's like, wow, it just gives you pause. It just gives you pause, and it's not even, the arguments oftentimes are not even being right or wrong. It's just about it's not about you being right or wrong. It's about what is the right thing to do. It doesn't really matter who does it. It's what is the takeaway. Okay, because every party can learn from, okay, in this situation, in this scenario, this is the right thing, and this is where we stand, regardless of who comes up with it or not. Oftentimes, both parties contribute to it. You put a piece, they put a piece. You add one item, they add another item. You subtract this, they adjust that, until you come up with, you mold the conversation in such a way that you come out with a final product that both parties can agree on being right, being fair, right? At least being fair, a fair compromise or a fair outcome to the whole scenario. But that's when you have two logical thinking individuals that can actually set egos aside and have a productive conversation. But when you're not able to do that, when you're not able to do that, or they're not able to do that, you're not able to have that type of productive conversations, you just end up going around and around, talking, losing energy, getting nowhere. Especially when the person lacks maturity to even stay on topic. It's like, can you stay on topic? Okay, why do you have to go fetch information, unrelated information from weeks ago, to randomly insert into this conversation which has nothing to do with it? That's because you're just lacking. You're lacking a lot in maturity and intellect and just common decency. Sometimes it's just like, wow, the person is so low, and it just takes the wind out of your sail. It's just like, and when you realize that you've been arguing for, let's say, even an hour, and then that's the way that it ends, you're just over it. It's like, wow, you could have really spared yourself that hour because nothing came out of it. It was just a giant waste of time, right? You could have gone without that time wasting. You could have just said, you know what, yeah. It's kind of like dealing with a child. If you know you're dealing with a child, there are certain things you're not even gonna bother explaining or bringing up or raising it up, because you know they don't even have the mental capacity to understand, much less discuss what you're talking about. They can't even grasp what you're saying. They don't have that concept. They don't have those mental concepts at all. So, but when you're dealing with adults, you think that, oh, they can handle it, where everybody's an adult. No, false. The one thing you should realize is there are a lot of people walking around here in adult bodies that are just growing children, honestly. And even some of these children out here are more mature than these adults, so-called adults. Okay? Even some of these children out here in middle school, high school are more mature than grown 40, 50-year-olds. Okay? You would be shocked. You would be shocked to see the gap, the gap in the level of maturity, regardless of age. Regardless of age. And we're not talking about disability. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just maturity alone. That's it. That's it. We're not talking about, anything that's actually diagnosed and things like that, or that has a reason behind it. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the person is a grown adult, but they choose to operate like a child. Period. Okay, it's a choice. It's a choice. And then they go around expecting people to babysit them, to pretty much babysit them through every stage of life. Okay, young adult, their children, they get babysit. Young adult, they still need babysitting. Adulthood, they need more babysitting. Parenthood, they still need more babysitting. They're a parent, but they need parenting themselves. They rely on people to babysit them. Okay. Middle age, they still. It's like, whoa. It's like, when are you gonna grow up? Middle age. You still need people to hold your hand like this. You still can't have a substantial argument about anything. You still can't hold a conversation without ditching and dodging and dipping and turning and doing all types of things, going around and around, getting nowhere. Are you serious? This is not a flex. This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. And if we were you, we wouldn't even come out into the light of day with that type of attitude. Are you kidding me? This is highly embarrassing. How do you walk around with your driver's license acting like this? You should be embarrassed to hold any form of ID and be behaving the way that you're behaving. Okay? You should not be out in public ever. Okay, go get checked and heal. Get yourself something, therapy, whatever you gotta do, because this is not cute at all. No one is impressed with this. Okay? No one is impressed, not any thinking person. Now, you can surround yourself with people that are just like you and refuse to grow up, perpetual children, right? You can surround yourself with yes men and yes women that all they do is stroke your ego all day long. But for the rest of society, you are incompetent and inadequate and a misfit as a grown adult. You're basically underdeveloped. This is very sad and embarrassing. Please go get help ASAP before you cause any more damage to anybody else. God forbid you have children of your own. It would be a tragedy to hear that. Go get checked.